Perfect. Thanks so much for that, Martin. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I had to move rooms there, so just wanted to double check. So first of all, thank you so much for having me, and also thank you very much to Lorraine for suggesting this at the forum and to highlight some of the work that Samplepath the project has done there over the course of the pandemic. So as you were saying earlier, Martin, the pandemic, although it's been extremely challenging, it has inspired a lot of digital innovation, and so the Samplepath development has actually been one of the really cool things to come out of this. So I am actually from Deloitte. So Deloitte has been supporting the HSE since the beginning of the pandemic. Our team sits specifically within the COVID-19 lab operations command center. So we are directly involved with laboratory testing, and some of my other colleagues from the logistics side of the team are also on the call here. So they are very keenly involved in the past week with the huge volume of samples that have been taken. Just for anyone who isn't clear on what COVID-19 testing looks like at the minute, we start out here with referral and scheduling. So at the minute, that's a lot of that is through self-referral. We then head into the test centres for sample taking. We then have our labs testing, and that's where the lab operations command center team comes in. We then have our results reporting outside on the far right hand side out here, and we also have contact tracing. So just in case we weren't sure of how the flow works there at the minute. So that's how it's working right now. And as I said, the operations command center team sits in there in lab testing. So we're kind of at the crux point of listening to both the test centers and listening to the labs and what their capacity is, and then reporting those results out to the patients and to the clinicians. So one of the aspects of this of COVID-19 testing, as I'm sure you guys are aware, is that it operates in a very dynamic 7-day-a-week environment. The number of tests that are completed, the lab that results those tests, it changes on a daily basis. So one of the things that we really, really wanted to keep an eye on was this aspect here that's highlighted in the grey box. So making sure that every single sample that is actually taken in a test centre is actually received in the lab itself. So previously, up until Samplepath came in, which was in about January of this year, it was an extremely manual process, and the reconciliation of the samples in the test centres to reconciling what had actually been received in a lab. There's been a distinct lack of digital visibility, and there was multiple points of risk throughout the process. So this had resulted in individual samples not being able to be located, inaccurate or unreconciled dispatch lists from the test centres, and then receipt lists from the labs. Each test centre, as I said, was manually recording samples, as I'm sure many of you remember, the very dark days of December 2020, when we saw record numbers of tests being taken at the time. Lots of the larger test centres, so we would all know like NSC, Galway Airport, Cork, Limerick, they were doing thousands of tests a day. Many of the test centre staff were having to stay 3-4 hours after the test centre had actually closed to reconcile every single sample that had come through on that day. So the guys who were working in the test centres were in sore need of a solution that would save them time at the end of the day. The labs additionally needed a lot of support in making sure that they were able to accurately say these were the samples that we've actually received there today. Each lost sample, just to give you a little bit of an indication of it, it takes around 4 hours to be able to locate it from the point where it was lost to the point where they can actually, where the team can actually definitively say this is the point where the sample was lost by, and then it's the whole thing of having to either contact the patient again to get them to come in to be retested, or to then locate that sample and be able to send it on to the lab. But essentially, you're going to be losing about four hours there. So if you have anything between 50 to 100 samples missing, that is a hell of a lot of time to try and find each of those. So we wanted to try and mitigate that one as much as possible and to try and resolve as many of those issues as possible. So, oops. So some of the things that the guys who are on the logistics team there at the minute are looking at, they'll be keenly familiar with all of this. Turnaround times for the labs are the key performance indicator for understanding how well they're performing right now. Each lab has committed to a 48-hour turnaround time in terms of test results, but the target for the lab is for the sample to have been reported within 24 hours from when the sample is actually registered in the lab. So let's say for today, for example, if my sample is received at the lab at 9 p.m. this evening, my result needs to be out by 9 p.m. tomorrow evening from that particular lab. SamplePath has enabled us to manage these KPIs really closely and to really understand, well, XYZ lab has actually received their samples at 7 p.m. this evening, and they've had them all reported by 6 p.m. tomorrow. So they're actually doing really well in terms of keeping to their 24-hour turnaround time. In terms of backlog management, this is another really important aspect of managing the capacity of each of the labs. Each lab has a different capacity, as I'm sure you're all aware. So some labs can handle 3,000 samples, other labs can handle up to 15,000 samples. So it's really critical to keep an eye on each of these capacities. That is a lot of the work that the logistics team and the core operations team is actually monitoring. So ensuring that each of the test center deliveries of samples is matching up with each of these lab capacities is really critical to their work. Demand forecasting that SamplePath enables really fosters really good results in terms of being able to say in a real-time manner how many samples that lab can actually be expecting when they receive their boxes this evening. If we look at what SamplePath actually is, so it's a digital solution to track the sample from when they're actually taken from a patient to the point where it's actually received in a lab. So it's both a mobile and a website application. So the mobile application, if any of you have actually been into a test center there recently, you'll have seen them using any of the the standard HSE devices, like you'll see there in the bottom right-hand corner. They're using them to scan the sample at the point where you've actually had it taken and when you actually pack it into the package and when it's actually dispatched. And then that box is then actually scanned at the lab to say that that has now been received. So this is delivering on a number of key benefits that we had stated at the outset of what we actually needed to achieve as part of this. So it was all around improving traceability and providing that audit trail and chain of custody. So some of the key benefits include that increased traceability and the reduced risk. So we're now able to spot really quickly when a sample has not been received at a lab within 24 hours. So this could have been for any number of reasons. It might have simply been delayed, might have been placed somewhere slightly differently to where the driver normally picks them up. But we're able to spot that one very quickly rather than previously where we might not have known about it for a couple of days and we only find out about it when patients are ringing into HSE Live 3 days down the line when they haven't actually received their results within the 48-hour turnaround time. So this means that we're able to spot that one very quickly and we're often able to resolve it while those samples are still viable, rather than having to get a number of people in to be retested, which is an enormous saving that we're able to bring to the HSE with this. In terms of smart logistics, as I was mentioning there previously, the logistics team is very keenly aware of SamplePath throughout the day. It is a key factor in their ability to be able to forecast the number of samples that are heading to each lab. The web monitoring application gives them that real-time view of what each of the test center routes are looking like in terms of how many samples have actually been taken that day. So it means that they're able to align those collections to each of the lab's capacity. So to be able to say route 1, route 3 and route 7 can go to XYZ lab, while route 2, 6 and 9 can actually go to ABC lab over there. So it's really important, and it means that we're able to keep our turnaround times to the absolute minimum, which is brilliant. In terms of the real-time view of testing activity, through the website dashboard, the national teams for testing are actually able to see the activity across a test center site, a region, and then across the whole national picture, which means that they're able to do a lot more in terms of understanding live demand and then understanding that workforce planning. So being able to support the people in the test centers where they actually do need extra staff, or when people are having a quieter day. So it means that they're very keenly aware of that one in a real-time manner, which is excellent. Flexible usage. So SamplePath is not only used in the test centers, which is really the amazing thing. So we've actually rolled it out to third parties, including our colleagues in the National Ambulance Service and our colleagues in SafetyNet, who are a team of medics who operate around the country, who are often supporting vulnerable patients. And they've been testing a lot of different groups across, particularly inner city Dublin, which has been amazing for them. And so one of the things that we've been able to do is to make sure that SamplePath is completely functional for these types of groups as well. Obviously, it's a lot easier when you're in a static site, and so you have a Wi-Fi modem, which is often just around the corner from you, so you're able to get that one. The National Ambulance Service, their whole function is to be able to be mobile. So to be able to make this application work for them in whatever setting that they are in is absolutely fantastic. Equally for safety net, they might not be operating in places where there's a really strong Wi-Fi signal or even a strong mobile signal. So to be able to create an application that can work in the offline mode and then upload that data later on is a really, really exciting opportunity and a really, really cool thing to be able to support the work that they're doing in terms of COVID testing there with those two groups. In terms of some of the key architectural principles around sample path, one of the things that we wanted to do was making sure that it was cloud first and Ireland based with 24/7 managed services. It's actually a Deloitte team who's offering that support there. So it means that 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, the HSE is completely supported in terms of its use of sample path, which is amazing. The user experience, so this was entirely built with the end user in mind. So understanding what it would be like to actually use this application while testing a patient. So we spent a lot of time actually rolling out the solution in the pilot stages in the NSE. We spent a number of days in there to understand how individuals will use the application and make sure that it was tailored so that it was not hindering their experience, hindering any of the things that they were needing to do with the patient at all. It was built on services first principles. So again, kind of similar to as I mentioned there, we're looking to try and maximize the experience of the user as quickly as possible. One of the things that enabled us to roll this out very quickly was that we did not include any PII in our solution. So the only thing that links sample on sample path to a particular patient is the SwiftView referral ID. If any of you have been tested, you'll have gotten that one in the text. So it's typically a 7 or 8 digit referral number. So you won't be able to identify who the patient is unless you also have access to that SwiftView database as well, which sits externally to sample path. The standalone application with no locked-in license fees, and it's actually barcode agnostic. GS1, and I believe a couple of our colleagues from GS1 are actually on this call as well. We're the key strategic partner in this one, and we're incredibly supportive in rolling this particular solution out. We really couldn't have done it without them. We're very, very lucky to have all of their expertise and everything as we were rolling this out. So this is what the application actually looks like. So this is on the far left-hand side of the screen over here. You're able to see what the screen will look like for the individual who's taking samples there in the test centres. So typically when you enter into the test centre and you get your sample taken, you're going to go through the blue stage. For any packing, you're going to be using the green stage, and then for the dispatching of the samples, we're going to be using that orange stage there. This is the national view on the website there on the right hand side. I'll actually just go on to the next slide, which gives you a little bit more detail of that. So up here, we're able to see the date range up at the top. We're able to see this test center overview. So if I'm a test center lead, this gives me a really quick view of how many samples have actually been taken today, how many have been packed, how many have been dispatched, how many are still not packed, so probably still sat in the testing days, and how many have actually been received at a lab. On the far right hand side over there, we're able to see that sample profile overview. So again, we're able to see at a really quick glance what types of patients have been in today. So how many healthcare workers have we had in? How many schools have we had in? How many general public have we had in? And are there any others or anything like that that we can see? And then when we scroll down the page, we're able to see that detailed sample tracking view. So again, we're able to see every single referral ID. We're able to see the patient type. We're able to see what time that particular sample is captured at. So really that should correspond with the patient's appointment time. Which testing bay they were actually captured in, which package it was packed into, what time it was packaged at, what time it was dispatched at, what lab it was received at, and what time it was received at. And then on that far right hand side there underneath status, ideally at the end of the day, you'll be able to see everything will be green and will be received. So that was a quick whistle-stop tour there on sample path. Again, one of the other things that we're able to do on this is actually we're able to search by either referral ID or package ID. So for me as a test center lead, this makes it really, really easy to be able to say if a patient rings me up to the test center and says, oh, I haven't had my results yet, I'm able to search in here to say, oh, that's actually been received at the lab. But it was only received, 2 hours ago. So calm yourself down. We'll get the result out shortly. But we're also able to understand if a particular sample hasn't been received at the lab yet, and to be able to sound the alarm there, to be able to say, oh, we need to go and have a look for that particular sample. So it's a really, really handy functionality to have and enables a lot of transparency in the whole testing process. So this is really exciting. application, and it is, while it's focused on COVID-19 at the minute, COVID-19 sample taking, it's built so that it can actually track anything that you want. So when we were rolling this out previously with when we brought it into the labs to explain them how it worked, Pat Maher down in UHW was chatting about how this could be really, really exciting in terms of tracking any of the lab samples that are taken in there in the hospital. So it has a number of different applications. So hopefully in the future we'll be able to see it rolled out to track any number of different samples. So I think I should have kept a time there. I know I kind of rattled through everything. But if you do have any questions or anything after, please give me a shout. I was delighted to be able to present this one.
No, that was great, Rachel. I know, Lorraine, we were talking about potentially having a short demo from Verona. Are you in a position to do that? Have we lost Lorraine?
Sorry, Martin, I'm back. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Can hear you perfectly.
Yeah, sorry, the connection's not great here. Just to say, I think this is actually the main part about this is that it's so simple. It's like a barcode, using the barcode. And I think for the staff and the patients, I think this is really, really brilliant. And it has many other uses that I think we'll be using it for different things in the future. But the other thing I'd like to say is, like, I mean, as a team, like Deloitte and HSE have worked together really, really well. And there's also Grace Cunningham, who's not here today, but she's like one of our vital members of the team as well. And one of the things that Rachel says all the time is, you know, we need to set you up for success. And actually, like, I think as a team working together on this, I think we really have gelled and have been able to kind of set us up for success. And John Joyce speaking earlier about the data and stuff and how he, you know, provides figures to the government. But it's probably our data from the sample pack that's gone into the data lake that he's pulling. So like this is actually how it works. And I just think it's brilliant. There was one day when Rachel, there was a child being airlifted for an operation, and it was a Friday, late Friday even, and we were waiting on a result for a nurse. She couldn't go unless she had her COVID green pass or whatever, you know, to say that she had her sample and she was tested negative. And Rachel went off and chased it down and had the sample like in a few minutes, you know, pulled the sample out of the data lake or whatever, had the sample there, and the flight was able to take off. So, I mean, this is really, really something really brilliant. And, you know, in a digital sense, COVID hasn't been like, you know, a great thing for us, but in a digital sense it has. And this is another really good tool that we've you know, developed from COVID. And you know, I just think working with Deloitte is kind of been like working in synergy. Like, we just work really well together, and I just would like to commend them on all the work they did and everybody on the team. But yeah, Deloitte, it's great. It makes my life easy.
And Martin,
Thanks,
just to add to
Lorraine.
that, we did actually try and test a live demo earlier on, but because Lorraine is in Italy, we believe it's geo-locked in the sense that it doesn't allow access outside.
I was going to say that's how secure it is.
That's how secure it is, exactly, Rachel.
Right. Okay. Well, listen, thanks so much, Lorraine. Thanks, Rachel and Suzanne and the team at Deloitte. And there's nothing left to say but arrivederci, Verona. Okay.